Welcome to Empowering Plans, a show dedicated to identifying waste and undue expense in the health benefits industry, discovering ways to maximize benefits while minimizing costs, and empowering employers, administrators, and consultants to emphasize, once again, the benefit in benefit plan. Today's episode is brought to you by the FIA Group, empowering plans since 1999. Now here are your hosts, the FIA Group's own CEO, Adam Russo, and Senior Vice President and General Counsel, Ron Peck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Empowering Plans with the FIA Group. I am your co-host, Adam Russo. Alongside me, as always, is Brady Bizzarro. Say hello, Brady.
Hello, Brady.
And my good friend and Senior VP and General Counsel of the FIA Group, Ron Peck. Say hello, Ron.
Hello, Ron Peck.
Folks, I just want everyone to know, okay? As a CEO, I can't make mistakes. Last night, 8 o'clock at night, I put my kids to bed, and I turn on the news. And they're talking about this snowpocalypse, right? We're going to get 8 to 12 inches of snow, 2 feet of snow, then it's 6 inches. 8 o'clock last night, we're still getting 8 inches of snow, supposedly. So I go to bed, wake up this morning, nothing. There was nothing. How is it possible that at 8 p.m. we're getting 8 inches, at 8 in the morning, there was nothing? Not a drop. And they're like, yeah, we got it wrong. Like, I would love to have a job where I can literally be wrong at a 4 hours notice. Yeah, I was wrong. Sorry.
I guess when it comes to nor'easters, they get 3 out of 4 right.
But I mean, isn't it? I mean, I'm not even talking about like, yeah, we missed up by 2 days. Okay, it went to the wrong direction. I get it. The storm didn't go the track they wanted. But if the storm's in Connecticut, how do you mess up how long and when and if it's going to hit Boston, which is 45 miles away?
Well, I can't blame the storm. I mean, if you've ever been to Hartford, you know you don't want to leave. It's just so nice. So just stay West Hartford, hit the Rose Garden.
Anyways, folks, sorry for going off track there, but this snowstorm thing was just amazing. I mean, I got my snowblower ready. I put gas in it. I had it all primed up for nothing. Anyways, guys, there's a lot we want to go over today. I love the format that we have where each one of us just has a topic, something that's just bugging us, something that's on our nerves, and we just decide that, you know what, let's spend a little bit of time on it. So if you guys wouldn't mind, I really want to go first because this has been bugging me for a long time. So, folks, without naming names, recently we had a client come up to us talking about a self-funded plan's ability to exclude surrogacy claims, meaning we'll just give a background story. So there's a lot of companies out there, if you look up online, of people who, for whatever reason, either can't have their own child, can't carry their own child, or just don't want to. Like literally, they don't want stretch marks or a C-section or whatever it is. So they look for women, young women who are healthy, and say, look, we'll pay you $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 to literally carry our child for us. It's a delivery system. You're not the mom. It's not your eggs. You're carrying someone else's baby, a surrogate. And after doing some research, what I noticed is many of these websites, so the companies, the surrogacy firms, are getting paid tens of thousands of dollars for doing nothing but matchmaking. They're bringing together the egg, the sperm with the vehicle, the surrogate. The surrogate's getting paid. The donors are benefiting because they're obviously having a child. The agency's getting paid. And what I notice on the websites, guys, is it says, oh, don't worry. If this person is an American and they have a job, their employer or their health plan will pay for the delivery of the baby. So I'm sitting there as a self-funded employee going, so one of my employees for profit is carrying someone else's child. Everyone's benefiting, but I'm the one paying the claims. Now, Ron, you might say to me, well, Adam, it's only $10,000, right? A typical delivery, right? No question. Most of the times, no self-funded employer is ever even going to know that they just paid for a delivery because you're not asking for details. It's a baby being delivered. It's $10,000, $14,000. You pay the claim. But what if it's a spec claim? What if that child was born early? What if it's premature? What if there's complications? Now I have $1 million claim. Is the self-funded plan on the hook? Can you deny it? So the first thing we did was when we analyzed it, we started researching this and seeing that there's a really good argument to be made that a self-funded employer would have to cover the claim. You couldn't get excluded from it because it discriminates potentially against women. I just want audience members, if you've had this situation, is this a one-time thing that only happened once or twice in New England? Or is this a national phenomenon that more and more self-funded plans are seeing? I love our audience's take, but obviously I want the smart responses from Brady and Ron. Any feedback you can give me would be great.
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting, Adam, you bring this up because surrogacy is a key word. I think you do find often a lot of plans will exclude surrogacy. And the argument from the other side has been, well, we're not even asking you to pay for the surrogacy procedure. You know, we understand that if you got the claims for the surrogacy procedure, meaning the procedure by which the embryo is implanted,
the implantation,
the actual surrogate procedure.
We see those excluded all the time. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think that these organizations you've mentioned that do this as a business, they don't even try to get it into the plan anymore. They know we're onto them. And what they'll do is instead they'll argue that how the person got pregnant is separate and irrelevant from the fact that they now are pregnant. Right. And then what they'll do is they leverage not only ACA but the Pregnancy
Discrimination Act.
Right.
The PDA.
They'll leverage the PDA or Pregnancy Discrimination Act, which is funny because every time I see PDA, I think public displays of affection. But anyway, they try to leverage that and basically say you can't exclude the pregnancy and delivery costs regardless of how they occurred in the first place.
Right. If the baby's in you, it doesn't matter how it got there. You, employer, have to pay to get that baby out.
Exactly. Now, I would argue that if they are right, which, again, is still being questioned, I think, in some cases out there, but even if they are right, I would argue it's not because that was the intent of the law, but more a loophole in the law. But, again, I didn't write the law.
This is big money.
So, yeah, it's a great
this
question.
is not – I mean, if I'm a stop-loss carrier and $1 million premature delivery claim comes through, and then you're asking for medical records, right? And in the doctor's notes you read, it says surrogate. Aren't you flipping out? They're like, whoa, wait a second. This person was paid to carry a baby? You're paying this? Aren't you excluding it? I know there's subrogation arguments you made, a lot of different stuff. But my question is, does this have to be covered? And if so, is that a loophole? Is it a problem that needs to be addressed on behalf of our industry as a whole?
Yeah, I would say that. So obviously, many laws have loopholes. I think if you ask the Congress people who wrote this Pregnancy Discrimination Act what they had in their mind at the time, they probably didn't consider surrogacy. But the fact
was even a surrogate
that word's not in the act. It's not in the statute.
Was it even a possibility back then to be a surrogate?
And I think also when you think of surrogates, I mean, there are also examples where you have someone who's in the same family. And, you know, my sister, right, or my cousin can't carry a baby physically. And so you're doing it for them. And in that limited example, I could see how the lawmakers would say, yeah, you know, that's something that we think should be covered. But I don't think they necessarily saw the potential for this kind of business model, especially when you consider, I believe there are many, if not all countries in the European Union where surrogacy is actually illegal. So now you have this large audience that are looking for somewhere that they could do this, and boom, you're fresh for picking.
I just thought it's a good topic, and I'd love to know if it's happening anywhere else other than the couple cases that we've seen in New England where we've had internal fights about this. I mean, our own legal department, people don't agree on which way this should go, and I think that this is an emerging issue potentially, and I'd love to know if it's just a one-time thing or is this something that we should put on the radar. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ron. What's your big topic for
Sure. Well, it sounds to me like we're talking about the sort of new issues that are hitting our desk and a little earth-shaking. And the issue that I've been looking at recently, we've been calling them the Untouchables. You know, this was probably happening before. There were probably people who fall into this category, but they were able to afford individual policies of insurance because the cost was being offset by young individuals, healthy individuals, low-risk individuals who were buying individual policies with the same carrier as well, funding the risk pool. But these so-called untouchables are people who are aged, 60, 61, 2, 3, 4. They're not quite Medicare eligible yet, and they lose their coverage. They either lose their job, company closes, or they lost their job individually, and so they're no longer covered under the plan, and they maybe can't afford the COBRA, and they're looking at these individual policies, and of course the rates on these policies are now going up, not only because of that individual's particular characteristics, the fact that they are a higher risk insured life, but additionally, all of the low risk lives that we're going to subsidize it, as we know with the tax bill, now we don't have to purchase it anymore.
And I'm sure Brady's going to talk about the tax bill.
Yeah,
or
talking about
something.
well, I'm so sorry. But what I'm basically saying is that this group, we talk about how the change in the law and the mandates and the enforcement of the mandate were going to impact group benefit plans and self-funding. But then you think about this small segment that I never really thought about, which are the 60-plus group that are just below that Medicare age, and they just need a few years to bridge it, and suddenly, bam, they're going to get slammed.
And no one wants to touch them.
Untouchable.
I mean, that's a great movie.
Oh, that is a good movie, right?
I mean, isn't it? I mean, what do you think? This is a growing problem that we're noticing? Is it a self-funded issue, really, or it's just more of a health insurance problem?
Well, the thing is, who wants to take that risk on? That's what's so amazing is that
Nobody.
You know,
I wouldn't want to.
If you think like, oh, we could create some sort of an association health plan or some sort of group plan where people can individually join up and pool their resources. The point is, again, you're talking about a deep pool, but it's filled with high-risk lives.
But can't they join AARP at the age of 50?
Well, there you go. I guess.
So wouldn't they be able to get some type of AARP reduced rate plan?
Discount, yeah.
Well, who's underwriting that policy, right? Because again, this always fascinates me.
I don't know, guys. I think my surrogacy case was a little more fun than
very
Ron's.
exciting,
I think it's a little bit more fun than Ron's 60 to 63-year-old problem.
Well,
I'm only
I don't
kidding.
think any of these people are surrogates, though. But I
Imagine
think
that would be a good
a
case.
double
Now we got a
whammy.
case,
Now we got
double
some
whammy.
trouble.
All right, let's see what Brady has to bring to the table today.
So it's funny that Ron mentions the problem of young, healthy people dropping out of the market, because that's a problem we've been seeing in Idaho. And I mentioned this on our recent webinar too, but it's in the news lately.
Should we tell everyone that we have an office in Boise?
I think we should. I'm not sure if his office has been involved in what's going on in Idaho, but
So now you're talking crap about our office in Idaho.
No, listen, those people are all going to be
They're all
covered by
saints.
the FIA Group's incredible double, triple platinum, super self-funded plan.
Well, I wanted to say something nice about our Boise, Idaho office, but obviously Brady doesn't like those people. How they don't get involved in these kind of things. It's not, they're not qualified maybe to handle these tough issues. All right, get Brady. We're sorry.
So what's going on in Idaho is essentially there's a national showdown, or there was a national showdown between the state and the federal government. They're over whether or not the state would be allowed to sell plans that are not compliant with the ACA. The governor of Idaho is concerned that 70,000 Idahoans, I think that's right, Idahoans, I don't know how you say that, Idahoans, one of them, 70,000 of them dropped their
just
coverage.
insulted them again.
We can go back and edit that part out, I think.
Talking for a
Is
minute
that
has
right,
insulted
Pat?
these people twice.
So they've dropped their coverage, 70,000 of them, and the state's concerned about, again, the rising costs for people who actually are sick, who do need coverage. And so unlike other more blue states, which are imposing their own individual mandates, Idaho says, let's try to offer more affordable, less burdensome plans to these young people to attract them. And they're doing that by saying, we'll charge you more if you're sick, for example, or we'll put annual or lifetime limits on how much we're going to pay for your coverage. But the result is it's cheap for these plans. And they're trying to draw young people back into the market.
Now, can you argue that if you didn't live in Idaho, right? Let's say I'm in Nebraska. Could I sign up for one of these Idaho plans? Is that an argument you can make that if I'm a young person, let's say 29, and I don't want to have this robust health plan through my local Nebraska employer, could I join can I get a fake ID and have an Idaho license plate, right?
So Cross the border. Hey, man, I'm going up to New Hampshire to get some awesome insurance. You guys want to
honestly,
come?
Now you have people literally doing that. Could this be a situation where a state says, you know what, we want to be the state where people want to buy insurance from?
So it's funny you say that. The answer is yes, that could have happened because the state could have used that plan as a benchmark plan, and then you could have had self-funded employer groups across the country saying, I'm going to copy that benchmark plan in Idaho, which is not having to cover people with pre-existing conditions and can offer limits on healthcare, and you'd all be flocked into that plan. But at the last minute, surprisingly, I would say, the Trump administration knocked on the door of the governor's office and said, you know what, you got to stop this.
Okay,
it's
so
not
time
allowed.
out. Just so we make sure on the same page, right? And again, I'm not anti-Trump, anti-Obama, whatever. Just looking at it straight-faced. You're telling me that the same person, the president, who was saying, we want to have competition, states should have power, Obamacare is the worst thing ever. Cross-border competition. Literally, you have a state that's saying, we're going to take on Obamacare. We don't believe in it. We believe the state should have its own plan. We're going to run with it. We know what we're doing. We're going to offer an alternative that's cheaper than all these mandates, etc. And at the last minute, our president went to the governor of Idaho and said, you can't do this.
Well, he had his CMS director do it, but effectively, yes. And the reason is because there's something bigger at stake here. The Obamacare still is the law of the land, as we covered extensively last year.
So what's bigger at stake? Why did they do that?
Because you can't have a state just disobeying federal law. That's the reality of it. And that still is the law of the land. They tried to repeal it. As we know from last year, they failed. So until they can repeal it effectively, you have to enforce it. And if you don't, then, what's to stop any other state from just disobeying other federal laws like they do on marijuana, by the way?
All right, but they already do it on marijuana.
They do, right.
They do it already on sanctuary cities do it. The state of California is doing
true.
it. So
you found some loopholes there, it sounds like.
But that's a great topic. But, I mean, you're right. I mean, so now what Idaho wanted to do is done. It's dead.
Done, right. So there's a couple other ways they may go forward by maybe using these association health plans or short-term insurance plans, but we're still unsure what they're going to do. What we do know for sure is that, just flaunting the ACA, that, obviously is not going to be allowed.
So basically, gentlemen, what we need to do, we need to find a 61-year-old Idaho resident surrogate. And then all three of our issues will be
the trifecta.
That would be the perfect case. We have to find that case. But no, it's a great point. So Brady, what do you see happening this year, if anything, when it comes to healthcare reform?
So I think first thing is we're going to get through the next few days and see if the government stays open. They're going to pass a spending bill. And then I think that bill has very little to do with Obamacare. I think in the next coming months, we'll see more rules issued to define what is allowed in association health plans. I think they'll be allowed, and you'll see a lot more waivers perhaps of ACA requirements. You'll see loosening of the restrictions, but I don't think you're going to see wholesale ignoring of the ACA.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. I have a couple of things I want to bring up. One, it was a great podcast you had last week with LG Hansel on. That was an amazing insight into the problems that we're seeing with PBMs and drug costs. We are getting so many new interview guests to come on. We're making our final choices for next week. So hopefully you stay tuned and dial in. But on behalf of Ron Peck, Brady Brazzaro, myself, Adam Russo, and our producer, Pat Santos, thank you for joining the FIA group, and thank you for empowering your plans.